I think about The Nation magazine and this incredible series of articles that it has written and provided for us with the information that we need in a real democracy to act and to act effectively to make the world a better world. That 1% of Americans are worth nearly $17 trillion, which is $2 trillion more than the bottom 90% of all Americans. That the nation joined forces with the Institute of Policy Studies to produce the best reporting and thinking about the critical issues of inequality in our society today. Nearly 10 writers, 2 to 3 editors, each covered a facet of this topic, and the result is a must-read. This prize winner poses the question that we all should be asking ourselves as a society. Is it right? Is it fair? Is it just? That so many suffer while so few reap the rewards. The question that we ask ourselves now in a failed economy is, what can we imagine? What kind of world, what kind of economies that are going to service all of us? Those are the questions that we have to ask. The nation is going to be there, right there at the point of that discussion. They're going to be there along with the Institute of Policy Studies, to be there to talk about those, to make them public dialogues, so that we all become architects of our own rescue. John Kavanis in the Nation magazine, please come and accept this award.
I'm Esther Kaplan with the Nation Institute Investigative Fund, and I think John and I are going to say a few words together. This is, I think, what in this context we'll call the organizing committee for the issue, or a good chunk of it. It's, of course, a delight to be accepting an award named after the great Sidney Hillman. Legend has it, as I understand, that when FDR wondered whether a policy might be acceptable to the labor movement, he'd say, run it by Sidney. It would be nice if there were a Sidney that close to the White House today. This award, of course, belongs above all to Katrina vanden Heuvel, the editor of The Nation, whose editorial vision and commitment to social justice made this really ambitious project possible. But as a Hillman judge, she honorably recused herself not only from evaluating the entry, but accepting the award. So John and I get to do that in her place. At this moment of crisis in journalism, with more than 10,000 newsroom staff laid off just in the last year, this special issue exemplifies the spirit of collaboration and experimentation that I think will be required if we're to save reporting in the rocky period ahead. This issue tapped the talented editors and reporters at the magazine, including Roan Carey, who's not here tonight, the deep data analysis and brilliant minds at the Institute for Policy Studies led by John Kavanis, and the resources of the Investigative Fund at the Nation Institute, one of a growing breed of nonprofit investigative centers around the country where I serve as editor. Only the Nation would have taken the space during a frenetic election cycle to step back and comprehensively tackle what I think is a cancer at the heart of our democracy, ruled by the rich of an economic and political system that ruthlessly leaves everyone else behind. The magazine offered a historical perspective with a funny and incisive essay by Doug Henwood about the Gilded Age then and now. It exposed how excessive wealth harms the rest of us with a rather frightening chart and an accompanying essay by Barbara Ehrenreich on how the rich fence off our public space for their own amusement. It brought us face to face with the real-life consequences of the income divide, with Dedrick Muhammad's prescient piece on the collapse of black wealth due to the subprime crisis, and to my left, Gabriel Thompson's contrasting portraits of the billionaire hedge fund managers in Midtown Manhattan with their well-heeled lobbyists and free market think tanks, and on the other hand, the underpaid, non-union security guards who toil on the ground floors of their glass-walled buildings and are forced to sign up for wars they don't believe in as their only remaining path to the middle class. And just when readers were weeping into the magazine's recycled paper stock, Sarah Anderson and Sam Pizzigati showed how our country it simply does not have to work this way, with a concrete, practical platform for reform that we should all send photocopies of to our current congressional leaders. While stock market losses may have slightly closed the wealth gap this year, this dire economic crisis has so far left our plutocratic system completely intact. On every key legislative battle in recent months, the wealthy have won out. The bailout has indeed shored up Wall Street and not Main Street. Bankruptcy rights for people facing foreclosure have been blocked. The Employee Free Choice Act is gasping for air. The nation's special issue raised a set of concerns that came to define the presidential race and Obama's early presidency. There's much essential reporting and organizing to be done in the months ahead if this economic crisis is to be the occasion for remedying rather than deepening our country's atrocious wealth divide. A warm thanks to the Sidney Hillman Foundation and to this august panel of judges for acknowledging this great team effort.
Yeah, thank you all. You've been a wonderful audience, and it's great to be here with the other awardees and the judges. So I'll add just a minute to what Esther has said. It clearly takes a village to produce a special issue of the nation, and this is part of the village. Let me say first a word about Danny Glover here. I know of no other cultural worker who has more effectively dedicated his life to fighting against all aspects of inequality and oppression. 10 years ago, he took 2 days from his very busy schedule to accompany a team from the Institute for Policy Studies and John Conyers and Barbara Lee and his friend Harry Belafonte to go through rural Georgia and lift up the stories of black farmers, a struggling group in rural America, and bring their story forward to the press. And tonight I want to make a bold prediction about Danny. You heard it here first tonight. Danny is right now, he's produced a script and he's raising the financing for a film about the first successful slave revolt that liberated a nation, the story of Toussaint Louverture and the liberation of Haiti. And my bold prediction is that 3 or 4 years from now, Bruce Rayner will be standing up here presenting a Hillman Prize to Danny Glover for this incredible film of Toussaint Louverture. Let me say just one other thing about the special issue. My deep thanks to my colleagues at IPS who have that great capacity to turn ideas into action for peace and for justice and the environment. I'm very pleased to have Sarah Anderson and Sam Pizzigati and Beth Schulman here tonight, and to this wonderful collaboration with the nation. We thank them for giving us the space to tell a story that we think is as relevant today in the Obama era as ever. And just in a nutshell, this story starts with the Gilded Age of a century ago, when, as you all know, levels of inequality were as great as today. And yet, and here's the important piece, from 1930 to 1970, a bold labor movement, typified by Sidney Hillman, worked with other social movements, and they created the pressures to pull up the bottom and to press for a fair tax policy that pulled down the top and paid for a GI Bill and other programs that made this a fairer and more democratic society. We know how to do it. Today, after 30 years of widening inequality under Reagan and Bush, we now once again have the opportunity to reverse the second Gilded Age. But it really depends on creative action by all of us, by the labor movement and its allies across this country and around the world. And this special issue you honor tonight offers a blueprint for action. We invite you to join us, and thank you very much for this award. Thank you all.